Although not typical, sometimes true crime and criminal law intersect with law and politics, and we have it in the Luigi Mangione case. I'm Michael Popak. I'm at the intersection of all of those things here on Legal AF, the YouTube channel. Let me use this as a teachable moment. We have a state prosecution, a federal prosecution, lots of questions out there about the difference between the two, which is going to go first, what are the defenses, and the like. And what happened with the CEOs of the insurance companies and their meetings with the Department of Justice, still the Biden Department of Justice, and how did that result, apparently, in the federal prosecutions? And I'll give you my thoughts on that as well. Let's first talk about what is going on, bring you up to date there. Got an indictment in state court. It's about 10 or 11 counts against Mangione in state court. That's a state in New York that does not recognize a death penalty. The counts for felony murder, murder in the first degree with a terrorist enhancement. These are all in New York. If he was convicted, as I've said before in other hot takes, it would be life with parole, life without parole, or some amount of years between 25 and 35. That is in the state court proceeding. But sometimes the actions or conduct are indicted by the feds as well. And that's what happened here. It's not often that in an alleged murder or assassination attempt, or the things that happened on the street that day, that the feds step in, unless there's civil rights violations or other things as well. Here, the feds have stepped in, primarily based on new reporting, in a response to the public outcry or support for Luigi Mangione. I mean, I've seen all the TikToks. I've seen all the social media posts. I've seen the comparisons to idols, and I've seen the comparisons to Batman and Robin and all different things. And you know, the feds are watching it too. And it looks like the CEOs of the major insurance companies, fearing copycat other Luigis that decide, well, a lot of notoriety and fame coming out of this one, decide to take matters into their own hands and do what Luigi's alleged to have done. And they made an argument, a pitch apparently, to the feds that the feds needed to step in and do something about it. Now, the federal charges here, which also sort of focus on terrorism and that type of thing, because of the targeted nature of it, got it into the Fed side. There's a death penalty that is possible with this, and there is a incoming president who has a lust for the death penalty. I don't, but the incoming President Trump does. He killed dozens and dozens of people on death row in his first term in the first few months, and so if he gets the death penalty here, you can be assured that Donald Trump is going to try to align himself with the big pharma and big insurance against Luigi. It's almost perverse, but that the more attention he gets, the more social media frenzy around him, the more the feds and the other prosecutors are going to bear down to make an example of him. And so I wanted to address that as well. Now, we have the feds having indicted under their accounts. What generally happens is that the feds will take over the case. I know they've said that it's more likely that the Manhattan District Attorney case is going to go first. The state prosecutor is going to go first. I find that unlikely. I think it's more, from my experience, it's more likely based on how quick the feds moved in here, swooped in here. In fact, they indicted first. In fact, they forced Mangione and his lawyers to come into court first in an arraignment in the federal court system. Usually that signals that they are inclined to Bigfoot the prosecution and take it over and go first. Now, full disclosure, as most people know, my podcast partner and dear friend, Karen Freeman Knifilo, is the lawyer, along with her husband, for Luigi Mangione. Whatever I'm telling you here is my own analysis from my own experience for over 35 years practicing law, including in New York. It's not from anything being whispered in my ear or any kind of unethical communication that I would have had with Karen about how she feels about the case or things about the case. But I'm giving it to you from my own perspective. I'm having defended cases and in criminal courts like this one. The feds are likely to go first. And if that federal trial could happen anywhere between 3 to 6 months from now, there's speedy trial laws that require cases like this to go to trial relatively quickly. I see the feds going first, and then the state court case being stayed or abated, waiting for the completion of the federal case. Now, to answer some questions that often come up, he can get sentenced at both places. He would serve his federal sentence first, assuming the federal case went first. If it's not the death penalty and it is some term of years, he would get tried not after he served that term. He'd get tried now. They would bring him out of federal prison to appear in his state court case, and then they would try the state court case. And then the sentence would likely, even though it's a state judge, the sentence would be added on, assuming it's not death penalty, be added on to the federal sentence once served. That's how that gets coordinated. They don't usually share information. They're doing their own independent investigations, the FBI working with the Department of Justice, and the local investigators and all working with the Manhattan DA's office. Now, there's going to be a changing of the guard at the top in the federal case being led by the Southern District of New York in Manhattan, because the alleged crime happened on the streets of New York and the streets of Manhattan. There's going to be a change. There's going to be a new Southern District, New York, Manhattan federal prosecutor. His name is Jay Clayton. People in New York know him well. He'd been in that role before, and he'd also been the head of the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, under Donald Trump. I have no doubt that even though this case was started under the Biden administration, it will continue under Jay Clayton on the federal side. The state prosecutors will remain the same as well. Now, what we've been watching so far is the beginning of the criminal process, with an added element of extradition, meaning that the the criminal defendant was picked up in another state and brought back to answer charges in New York. Extradition was waived, so the process of one governor requesting the cooperation of another governor, Governor Hochul of New York requesting the cooperation of Governor Shapiro, that was waived. Finally, I think this is after Karen came in, and then he was arraigned. He was going to be arraigned in state court. That was the plan, but the feds literally swooped in. And as I said, the reporting is that the Free Luigi campaign has potentially backfired because it's drawn the feds in a way that they may not have been brought in without it. That's just the byproduct of when notoriety and celebrity intersect. The feds are watching. And that's why we are where we are. That's why the cards have now been dealt the way they've been dealt. Now, I believe since he was first arraigned in the federal system, it puts him in the federal detention center, the Manhattan or the New York Federal Detention Center, as opposed to Rikers Island. That's probably a benefit to Luigi and his lawyers because at least, and I've been to both. The Federal Detention Center in New York is a hell of a lot nicer and better equipped for meetings between lawyers and clients than Rikers Island. So in a way, I think Luigi and his team benefit because he's in the Federal Detention Center, not in Rikers Island. And that's because the feds went first. And we all saw the perp walk, right? Staged off the Cessna airplane, chained, surrounded by a phalanx of law enforcement. For some reason, the mayor of the city of New York, who's looking for some free publicity because he's got his own criminal problem, he's been indicted by the same office. Now, Mayor Adams is an interesting historical figure at this moment because he's also indicted for taking bribes. And he's been currying favor for a long time now with Donald Trump to try to get himself a pardon. It is likely, I'll just break the news here, my own analysis. I think it's likely that Mayor Adams is going to get a pardon from Donald Trump, who lives in New York and wants to have a friendly mayor in his back pocket. I think that's going to happen. And Donald Trump, I think one of the things we watch with Mayor Adams is that he's auditioning for his own pardon, right? He's auditioning because the apprehension of Luigi, the prosecution of Luigi Mangione, the feds coming in is all consistent with Donald Trump and, kind of currying favor with big industry, big business, and the healthcare industry. And so there is out there in the front like some sort of band leader, some sort of, you know what I mean, is Adams. And I saw it as a tryout. Adams trying to say to Donald Trump, I want that pardon now. The byproduct of that is making it very difficult for Mangione to obtain a fair trial in New York, although I think he ultimately will. I'm not sure that the judge is going to move it. The ultimate federal judge is going to move this case out of New York. I'm not sure any place else in New York is going to help him, and it would have to stay in New York. The state court case also, I think it stays in Manhattan. I mean, it could get transferred to some other more remote location, but I doubt it. I think the lawyers here are going to have to deal with a New York jury, federal and state, for Mangione ultimately. The trial, the magistrate judge who does all the preliminary matters in the case, apparently is married to somebody who's got investments in the pharmaceutical industry and healthcare industry. I'm not sure that's enough to get that person bounced if there's nothing else. First of all, it's a husband, so it's once removed. In this country, we let husbands and wives work. If they have investments together, which she's listed on her disclosure form, which apparently she has, it may give rounds to either her recusing herself and having a new magistrate assigned, or a motion for disqualification, which could be coming again. I don't know that for a fact. I'm just giving you what I would do if I were in the defense's position. Unless they feel that the magistrate is good for them and they don't see any bias, they don't think investment in healthcare industry is going to make this magistrate be any harsher than she would be otherwise. And they'll make that decision. We'll continue to watch. I'm sure they're waiting for the first initial decisions by the judge so they can gauge it a little bit better and advise their client. And we'll continue to watch that. But they're going to have to make that decision relatively quickly. You can't stretch this out too far if you're a defendant, because you waive then your right to object, especially in the federal court, to the removal of a judge on disqualification grounds or conflict grounds. So that's where we are at the intersection of kind of true crime, law, and politics. You see the pressure campaign has matched the social media campaign glorifying Luigi, celebrating Luigi, free Luigi, sort of led to the feds having a conversation with the healthcare industry. And them coming in. I'm not sure that would have happened had there not been such notoriety and celebrity around Luigi, but we'll have to see as the case continues forward. Certainly it's another sort of wild card that the defense now has to deal with moving forward that they wouldn't probably have to deal with otherwise. We'll continue to follow it here. I will, on Legal AF, on the Midas Touch Network, and here on Legal AF, the YouTube channel. So until my next reporting, I'm Michael Popak. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.